Hello, everyone. I'm Liane Jackson, senior law editor at Forbes, and today I am joined by Neama Rahmani. He is principal at West Coast Trial Lawyers, and we are here to talk about the indictment of Mayor Eric Adams. And I'm happy to have Neama as part of our discussion because, in addition to being a former federal prosecutor with the DOJ, he also was the director of enforcement of LA City Ethics Commission and investigated the mayor in Los Angeles and other politicians. So let's just get started with the bombshell indictment against Mayor Adams, the first time that a sitting mayor has been indicted. These are not, however, unusual allegations against a politician. There's talk of straw donors, of course, selling influence, in this case, to a foreign government, Turkey. He has been charged with bribery, wire fraud, solicitation of contributions from a foreign national, among other charges. Walk us through what we're looking at here, what Eric Adams is looking at here.
And sadly, not unusual for politicians. And there's a variety of charges here. Some are campaign finance related. So there are limits on campaign contributions. And sometimes people, to get around those limits, will try to funnel contributions through other donors. So the example would be if there's a $2,000 limit, what someone may do is have their employees, their 50 employees, contribute $2,000 each, reimburse them. That way you can funnel $100,000 to a candidate. Well, that's obviously unlawful. That's using a straw donor. That's money laundering, especially in a city like New York that has matching funds. So if donors raise small amounts, the city will actually match them, sometimes at an 8-to-1 ratio. So if someone contributes, let's say, $250, city might add $2,000 to a candidate's campaign fund. So that's a big deal. In addition, we're talking about soliciting and receiving campaign contributions from foreign officials. That's a big no-no and illegal under both city, state, federal law. Campaign contributions have to come from U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents. Foreign countries, foreign nationals, they cannot contribute or seek influence in U.S. elections. So that's one set of charges as well. And the last is just good old-fashioned bribery. The allegations are in exchange for business class tickets on Turkish Airlines and luxury stays at Turkish hotels. Eric Adams uses influence to get approval of occupancy of the newly opened Turkish consulate, even though the fire department hadn't signed off on all the permits because it was unsafe. So a lot going on here. They all fall into the large category of corruption, but Eric Adams is in a world of hurt right now.
And there has been an ongoing investigation here. They were circling the drain, as they say. A lot of his employees and appointed officials have come under scrutiny. A number have resigned. Of course, electronics have been confiscated. Eric Adams has been the only one charged so far in the case, but this has been a 10-month investigation. The prosecutors are alleging a 10-year scheme. And so it wasn't a big surprise, Eric Adams says, and he's actually happy that this has finally come to light in terms of what they are charging him with and what's going to potentially happen next. Now, can you tell me a little bit about how common it is for prosecutors to dig this deep for an indictment against a sitting mayor? You referenced or were part of the investigation into one of Los Angeles mayors. If you could compare a little bit about what happens in these sorts of situations.
So what happens on the campaign finance side is, without revealing all the investigative tips, if individuals end up contributing maximum amounts that have never contributed before, and they all have the same employer or the same address, or there's other sort of common bonds, that does raise red flags for straw donors. And, subpoenas can be issued for bank records and so forth to see if those individuals were reimbursed in the amount that they contributed. Believe it or not, it happens. People will actually deposit cash or checks from the individual who is the bundler, as we like to call it. Now, of course, oftentimes the feds will work on a tip. Someone might be arrested or charged with something else, and they might have information. And there was information here that Adams was selling influence both before and after he was mayor. So this is an investigation that's taken quite some time. Obviously, it became public when the raids happened last year, and Adams, in a very public way, had his phone seized by the FBI. So this is something we've been expecting for quite some time. And it's actually interesting. Obviously, Damian Williams, the U.S. Attorney in New York, in back-to-back weeks, unsealed indictments, and probably the two most high-profile investigations happening right now. One being, of course, Sean Combs, and now Mayor Eric Adams. And, he's no stranger to these public corruption investigations. Obviously, last time we spoke, I believe, Liane, you and I were talking about Senator Menendez. So this sort of falls in that same category.
Yeah, the Southern District of New York is wasting no time. Damian Williams is making a name for himself as the U.S. Attorney of Manhattan, filing all these really high-profile indictments and getting the attention of the entire country and the world, especially in the case of Sean Diddy Combs, who everyone knows as like megastar. So in this particular case, New York is sort of reeling in a way because there's a lot of controversy of whether Mayor Adams should resign. Some people are calling for his resignation. He is, of course, saying that it can be business as usual. I have a question a little bit about, you referenced this one building that he wanted to move forward on to assist the Turkish embassy to finish construction, and the fire department was against that. They also say that he accepted up close to, they tallied it up to about $100,000 worth of alleged gifts involving upgrades, involving trips to India, Ghana, China, France, business class upgrades, things like that. Now, we know of this one case that you referenced regarding pushing the fire department to approve a permit. However, what are the standards here? I mean, if he's accepted these gifts, but if if the government can't prove an equal quid pro quo in some way, does Eric Adams have a stronger case?
That's going to be the defense. And we've seen in other public corruption cases, again, going back to Menendez, right? The senator argued, listen, I'm just advocating on behalf of my constituents. That's my job as a public official. There's no this for that, no quid pro quo. That's what sometimes makes bribery charges hard to prove if you're a prosecutor. And obviously, Adams is a sophisticated individual, and I'm sure he did a good job covering up his tracks, whether it's being careful about what he said, whether it's deleting messages, acting through intermediaries. So bribery isn't that easy to prove, despite being charged in this case. It's actually one of the charges that has the highest percentage of not guilty verdicts when it comes to prosecution. So that's why I think SDNY and U.S. Attorney Damian Williams, took a little bit of a kitchen sink approach. They charged everyone. I expect there to be cooperators in this case. We see a lot of unnamed, unindicted co-conspirators. Obviously, conspiracy is an agreement between two or more people. They don't have to be charged, but I believe that in addition to all the text messages and digital evidence that the U.S. Attorney discussed during this press conference, we're probably going to have some proffers or cooperators, individuals that are close to the mayor who have flipped. And as you mentioned, Liane, many individuals that work directly for the mayor and for the city of New York have resigned in the past days and weeks.
Do you feel that fact, along with those quite sweeping allegations in this indictment, have undermined confidence in the ability for Mayor Adams to sort of continue? Of course, he's up for re-election. What does this mean for his prospects and really just the city moving forward without this constant disruption, constant resignations, people not wanting to be associated with this whole complaint to begin with?
Oh, no question. It's going to be a cloud over the mayor and New York City. It's going to be very difficult to get anything done. A lot of very high-profile elected officials in New York and around the country have called for the mayor's resignation. And, he's come out and said that this is racially motivated or political. I mean, obviously, Williams is the first Black U.S. attorney in the history of the Southern District of New York. So I think that's somewhat difficult to argue that it's some sort of racial prosecution. And same thing on the politics side. The mayor has said that this is all political because he stood up against Joe Biden and the Department of Homeland Security because of the migrant crisis in our southern border. Again, it's sort of difficult to see how one relates to the other and how Adams would be a target. But, he's dug in his heels. He's hired Spiro, pretty high-profile lawyer. I litigated against him have cases against him. It's very well known. Represented Alec Baldwin successfully recently and got that case dismissed. So he's going to dig in his heels and got a pretty big law firm behind him. And I wouldn't be surprised if this case goes to trial like many public corruption cases do, because he's not just fighting for his freedom, but his political career as well.
Yeah, Mayor Adams is a pretty pugnacious individual. He's not going to go down easily in this case or in any situation, we know. And back to the charges, what do you feel is their strongest case? Bribery is difficult. I mean, I guess wire fraud in terms of, and also the election, the donations where he got matching contributions, so potentially that as well. But again, and just to play devil's advocate here, I mean, I suppose again the latter, the matching donations, the potential fraud in that scenario could be difficult to overcome. But to play devil's advocate, we see this happening a lot. You've seen this happening a lot in your career with politicians. Obviously, there was a tip for them to go after this. But how much of this is trying to make examples of some of these high-profile individuals by Damian Williams in the Southern District and to kind of make a splash, potentially?
Sure, it does happen a lot, and rarely does it rise to the level of federal prosecution. Oftentimes, I've seen it handled administratively or with some civil resolution, right? So to be indicted by the feds, it's really the worst of the worst. Now, like you said, I think the bribery might be the most difficult to prove. I think it's provable. But when it comes to soliciting contributions from foreign nationals, that's really a bright line. And there are alleged communications with the mayor where he's doing so pretty sloppy. And that's something that Williams actually referenced during his conference. He wasn't careful enough, certainly, in terms of covering his tracks. And with respect to the benefits as well, there are disclosure requirements under city law. You have to disclose gifts that you receive. If it's someone who's doing business with the city, it's a very low threshold, $50 or more. And even if they're not doing business with the city, anything worth more than $1,000, you have to disclose. Now, sometimes these disclosure laws are broken. We've seen it even with Supreme Court justices recently, right? But it's a clear violation, in my opinion. If you're getting business class tickets, we all know that costs more than $1,000. You're staying at the St. Regis or the Four Seasons multiple nights, that obviously costs more than $1,000. So that's a clear violation, in my opinion. Then, of course, the cover-up, right? That's where the wire fraud comes in, where he's having as a scheduler or as assistant, pay a nominal charge, obviously much less than the value of the plane tickets or the hotel stay, or say I paid them in cash. Obviously those are all efforts to cover up the gifts that were received. So in terms of the range of charges, I think the gifts, the failure to disclose, that's the most readily provable by the government.
Yeah, and it is a lot. Once you lay it out like that and delineate all of the accusations, it does add up to quite a bit. We do know that Eric Adams clearly has great taste with the St. Regis and that sort of thing. But it's unseemly. He's in hot water at this point, and the cover up also doesn't help. So we're gonna see what happens next. What the Southern District of New York comes up with. They are seeking any information. And like you said, they're looking for proffers. They're looking for cooperation. So Neama, thank you so much for joining me again and breaking this down for us. I really appreciate you being here.
Of course, Liane, thanks for having me as always. I'm sure we're going to be talking about this a lot more in the coming months.
Yes, we will. I know you're busy. And so I thank you for your time and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.